That's fine. Yeah.
Are you ready to start, Elizabeth?
I'm ready to start. I think that yep. If I let Monique in, and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
So thank you everybody for coming.
Wait, just a minute. Wait, Robert. Wait.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. So thank you everybody.
Monique. Wait, Robert. Wait.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
Yes.
Hi, Monique. Are you there? How do I start the meeting? Oh. Monique. Oh, gosh.
Monique, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Lovely. Hello, how are you?
Good. Thank you.
Monique, can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, the bad echo.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you. Robert, go ahead.
Yes, I can hear you.
The bad echo.
Very well, thank you.
Robert, go ahead.
Very well, thank you.
Just going round and round.
If somebody's actually watching it on YouTube at the same time that we're actually having the meeting, you'll get that delay. So they need to stop the YouTube part of it and actually just participate in the meeting and then go back to that separately. It's part of the technology that's not quite advanced.
So Robert, you're muted in case you're not aware.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Robert.
Unmute.
Bonkers.
Elizabeth is muted as well. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think it's probably better if we all mute ourselves if we're not actually talking.
Okay, right. Well, I'm going to start the meeting now. Thank you very much. The usual technical nightmare of getting on. I can't wait till we see everybody face to face in a meeting room. Thank you all for coming. Do we have a police report, Elizabeth? You're muted, Elizabeth.
Yes, I know. We do have a police report. There's nothing on it that is specific for your area, but I will send it and it can be put up on the website, so it will be publicized.
Thank you.
The only thing I would say is that it's the last one apparently that they're going to be doing in this format. So when I know how they'll be reporting, I'll come back to the council.
Thank you very much. Councillor Otway, Paul, can we have a report from you?
Yes, good evening, Robert. There's not a great deal to really sort of report, really. I mean, obviously, Wiltshire Council is still very much into a lockdown. County Hall is virtually empty, with all members of the council working at home. But notwithstanding that, business as usual. Highways, planning, all our social services and social care aspects are still up and running. The main focus at the moment is the £50 million deficit that COVID-19 has created for this council, and this council is currently trying to work through how we are going to balance the books at the end of the financial year, because £50 million is a colossal figure, which needs to be brought in line. There clearly is consultation with central government about that, and although we've received some funding to date, there clearly is going to be further applications for funding to balance those books. Locally, Cat G has been suspended until further notice. Likewise, area boards have been suspended until further notice, but I would still encourage members of the public to put forward bids, because we will still deal with those bids. Highways matters, I am still progressing with highways as and when they come to the fore. So it is really basically business as usual. And I would like it minuted tonight for the benefit of this parish council. My congratulations to this council for taking some huge efforts to do this zooming into your council meeting, which affords the general public the opportunity to listen if they can't speak, because many councils aren't doing this. So I would like it formally minuted. My congratulations to this council in the manner in which you are attempting to still carry on business as usual. I'm not sure if the recent Honey Street planning applications will be discussed this evening in one form or another. If they are, I'm happy to contribute to that. But at this stage, I have nothing to say on that matter because it is very much resolved because it has been approved. But if there are further debates that come up in relation to some of the recent activity, I'm happy to get involved in that conversation. As far as I'm concerned, as your county councillor, and my discussions with highways and other matters. Apart from that, Robert, there is very little else for me to say at this moment in time.
Thank you very much, Paul. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Councillor Oathway? Anybody? May we proceed? Right. This is now Monique from the Crop Circle. I can't see you, Monique, but if you are there, would you like to say what you'd like to say, please?
Yes, I would like to say, can you hear me?
We can all hear you, I
Oh,
believe.
yeah, great. Well, good evening from the Netherlands, where I am at the moment. I would like to give you an update on the status quo of the safety measurements as communicated in my words email of 16th of July. After feedback, consulting several villagers and the police, 2 large safety mirrors have been installed on the 7th of August. 1 mirror to overlook the traffic of the main road and the other mirror to overlook the crosspoint, Chimney Lane and entrance Honey Street Mill side. Also, after consultations, 2 safety signs were installed. 1 with the text, "Attention, give way to traffic from the left" when leaving the Honey Street Mill side, and 1 at the beginning of Chimney Lane saying, "Attention, this road must be kept clear at all times." The measurements were taken to meet the community members who were having safety concerns. Costs are on my account. It's my contribution to the community because I want to ensure safety. In my view, much needed, especially after the previous safety sign went missing a few weeks ago and not getting a response regarding the request of cutting a part of the hedge. Feedback regarding mirrors. Except for 2 households on Chimney Lane, I received only positive responses and feedback, also from villagers of other parishes. 1 resident suggested to paint 1 of the mirrors in another color. Comments regarding safety signs. Several residents of Chimney Lane don't like the outlook and/or the place of the sign under the post box. I do agree more or less, but the purpose was and is safety first. And with tidying up the front with flower baskets and other things, I thought it would be a less unpleasant sign to look at. My suggestion is to initiate a discussion amongst the residents of Chimney Lane what is best to do, and of course involve the parish council. And of course, if necessary, the sign can be removed under the post box to another place on the pole of the lane and/or amended. Regarding parking, the owners of the development site, Donovan and Trevor Love, have kindly opened their site for car parking for visitors to the Honey Street Mill site and to the villagers in case of parties, guests, and like now, the restoration of the tarmac. This site can be used for parking until they start building. Voluntary parking donations are raised for village charity, which is the restoration of the Alton Parish wellspring, and I'm in contact with David Carlson about it. My last request is if it would be possible to announce this parking possibility and village charity on the website and on the notice boards. That was it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Monique? Alex?
He's muted.
Alex, you're muted.
Right. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, Monique. In terms of your consultations, I don't think I or one or two other people appreciated that they were formal consultations. I think normally the process for consultations to do with village matters is actually to go through the parish council, or at least to go through the appropriate authority. So mirrors on the road are normally dealt with by going through highways. Signs are normally dealt with either through planning or through the parish council. So that may be something you weren't aware of, but I think that's the proper process rather than sending out an email and then putting them up, because that's a little bit too informal. I had comments. I wasn't very happy about the mirrors because it affects the privacy of my house. It affects the look of the entrance to the village. I thought the safety signs were debatable. And I think it's actually probably illegal to put a sign onto a post box because it doesn't belong to the village, it belongs to the GPO. But I think that going forward, I think it's a matter that it will be better that these things were done through the proper channels. And regarding Trevor Love opening his site as a car park, I understood quite clearly from the planning, as went to great lengths by your planning consultant and the applicant, that you had more than adequate car parking on site. So it leaves me wondering why you're opening it for car parking if you, as you said in the application, have more than enough parking on site, because this is exactly the concerns that we raised during the application about the car parking spilling out beyond the curtilage of the ownership. So I think that moments, weeks after the consent is granted, we find that cars are still parking outside the curtilage. And the question that arises is, when that site is developed for housing, where will those cars go?
Thank you, Alex. Do you want to comment, Monique?
Well, I think regarding these questions, it's maybe the best to ask Donovan and Trevor Love themselves. It was just a very nice, how do you say, gesture of them. And especially with the eat out scheme coming in place, it was highly needed. And look, for example, what's happening now with the Thermic being restored. There is the possibility of villagers going there. It was not only for my exhibition, it's for everybody. It's for the whole village, it's for visitors. It has nothing to do especially with my exhibition.
Okay, so why are you consulting on it, Monique? I couldn't understand why it involves you if it's not to do with your exhibition.
Because I was in contact with them and they came up with it themselves. And I thought it was very nice of them to do. And look at the situation now, it's being used because there is...
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, but are you confirming now that that Trevor and Donovan approached you and it wasn't the other way around? It wasn't John from the cafe and it wasn't...
No, it wasn't about approaching. We were just in contact. I just understood while discussing other things.
But can I go back to the planning issue? That the important point is that both the cafe, the retail and the exhibition were crystal clear at great length and vociferously that they didn't require any car parking outside the site at all.
No, but that's something totally different. This is just a nice gesture, thinking ahead.
No, it's not thinking ahead. If it's not required, why would you do it?
Why?
It's not required. If there's adequate...
Because there's always can be a parking issue, for example, with parties of villagers.
I mean, that's not the case. Where there's adequate car parking...
It can be the case.
Alex, I think I'm going to draw this part of the conversation to a close, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because I think we do need some proper consultation from us all over this business in Chimney Lane, at the top of Chimney Lane. And I would appreciate if we can perhaps all get together and sort something out. I personally said to Monique, I didn't like the sign or I didn't like the bright red mirrors, but that's my feeling. And I'm not sure if actually you have permission to put them up. You told me, Monique told me that it was the police that gave her permission. I would have thought it would be more like planning, but I'm not an expert. So may we move on, everybody? Is everybody in agreement? Alex, is everybody else in agreement?
No, actually, I'm not in agreement.
No, so what happens now?
Yeah, exactly. We need a definite plan. We can't just say, oh, we'll talk about this some other time.
Well, I said a proper consultation, Polly. I was hoping that we would have it presented to the parish council, and we could then discuss it with members of this part of Honey Street.
Well, as long as there is going to be a proper consultation, I don't just want to sweep this all under the carpet and, you know.
I'm not trying
so,
to sweep it. I'm not definitely not trying to sweep it under the carpet. I just think it would be very nice if we could absolutely start again without, you know, we've got these signs. Several of us don't like them. I understand they're for safety, but I think if we could say to Monique now, definitely, could we have a proper proposal made to the council with consultation, and then we can discuss it at our next or the one after planning, on one or the next meeting. Is that acceptable as a committee?
Yes.
I'll ask a
Alex is
question.
not.
Do we, where are we with plan? Do they actually need permission to put up signs, or can you put up signs like that if you're the owner?
My understanding, Michael, is that on the highway, you need permission from the Highways Authority, because at the moment, the sign as you enter the village is on the verge that belongs to the highways. So you would need to submit a full application to Highways, and they would have to assess it and grant permission. With regards to mirrors on private land, mirrors, I'm not sure about mirrors. You'd have to check with the planning authority about that. But certainly with signage, there are quite strict rules to do with that. And some of that is relative to its position. And when it's adjacent to a listed building, which it is there, it's a slightly different set of rules. And it should really be consulted on with the conservation officer, who may well say they're absolutely fine with it and they like the look of it. And ditto with the signage to do with safety signage. The signage is an issue in that relationship. But I mean, I think the safety signage on private ground is slightly different than on the highway.
Thank you.
Robert, can I interject here? I just want to say I emailed Monique earlier this afternoon, and I did say that a lot of this was quite unclear, and it did need to go through the proper processes and the proper departments to be looked at formally, and suggested to her that if she had the information, pass it through me, then we can actually try and look into what is necessary. And I would actually say that I think that I need to be the first port of call for this, and it can be cascade out to the council as such.
Are you?
Yes, via me.
Are we all agreed, parish council, on that? Is that a good way forward?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Polly.
So
Are you
Robert,
happy?
I can make a contribution to this conversation if you wish.
Yes, but I would like you to. Thank
Okay,
you, Paul.
So from a county council perspective, I received emails over a weekend in relation to some matters that were occurring at Honey Street in relation to some of the matters you've discussed. Anything on private land has nothing to do with me, and I do not intend to become involved in any debate on that. But clearly, if there was issues that were on the public highway, that was a matter which was being brought to my attention. And also there was other matters going on at another premises in Honey Street, which was brought to my attention, and also was brought to the attention of officers from Wiltshire Council. So it just didn't come to me. It also went to officers as well, as a result of activity over a weekend. As a result of those activities on the Monday morning, I met with enforcement officers and highways officers at Honey Street. In fact, Robert, you will recall, you actually arrived and bumped into us whilst we were on site. I don't intend to talk about the other property that the enforcement officer was there for, but the highways officer was with me. Now that was not pre-arranged, because we'd arranged to meet in relation to the Crosshays crossroads at Wilcott and other issues that were bubbling around the Vale of Pewsey. So we had numerous sites to visit that morning. And then as a result of the emails that came in, we also picked up the Honey Street aspect as well to deal with those quite promptly. So the matter that we were looking at Honey Street was a mirror that was placed on the highway. And I can report that the highways officer, the engineer, his view was that sign was on highways land. It had no authority, had no permission to be there. And in fact, there will be some correspondence coming forward, I am led to believe, for the removal of that sign on the highway.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for bringing us up to date with that.
And I take in the point that actually sometimes these things are done in the best will, they're done with the best intention, but unfortunately, when things are brought to the attention of Wiltshire Council or highways, they can only comply with what the legislation says and what the law says. And if signs are illegally put in place onto a highway without the highways authority, then they have no other address, but in fact to take some action. So as I said, I'm led to believe that there will be some correspondence coming out in regard to the mirror, which is on the highway. In relation to all other matters, that's not a matter for me, it's on private land.
Thank you very much, Paul. Anybody got any other questions for Paul? Can
Yes.
I move on?
Yeah, I have one question, if possible.
I don't really think you're meant to do that, but go on.
If the mirror has to be removed, maybe a solution is that a bit of the hedge is cut so that the view over the road is better for.
I think I'm getting into dangerous water here. I'm going to stop this conversation now because I think that is something we all need to discuss as a parish council.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Monique.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'm moving on to number 4. Do we have any more comments, Elizabeth, from the public to consider?
No.
So I can move on to the agenda proper to receive apologies. I believe we've had apologies from Carol. Is that correct, everybody?
Yes, we've had apologies from Carol and Rob Aspinall today.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing, sorry, before we move on? In relation to the hedge gets cut annually. In fact, the hedge is due to be cut either today or next Friday, and it's cut back to the position it's always been cut back to. Cut back to the position was cut to by the Callums before I was there. There's a little marker, we cut it back to it. And
Alex, I think I ought to stop you there, if I may, without being rude, because I don't think that's, we'll discuss that at a different time. Okay, we've done number 1. Anybody got any declarations of interest?
Yes, I have.
And that's for the planning application at 2 Parish Cottage, is that correct?
Absolutely. I live almost next door, so I can't be involved in that discussion.
Okay. Can we move on? Is anybody else got any interest they need to apply for? No. So we can move on. Minutes of the previous meetings, I thought they were correct. Would everybody agree?
Yes.
Can we have a proposer?
I'll propose.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Alex, Carol and Alex. Sorry, Carol, I beg your pardon. Polly and Alex, I'm so sorry. The chairman's announcements we come to. Well, I'm going to start with some good news, I hope. The owners of Fernbank and the house next door, Jean and Brenda, have decided to repair Chimney Lane completely.
Ooh.
And it's absolutely amazing. We've had the road closed for the last 2 days, enormous amount of concrete, enormous amount of tarmac, and they've done a really good job. And I would publicly like to thank them and ask you, Elizabeth, just to make a note that the parish council thank them for doing this. Is that all right? I can't think, I know it's Brenda Trowbridge, but I can't think of Jean's surname. Does anybody know?
I think it's Jean. Is it Jean Petit?
Well, whatever it is, Jean and Brenda, we'd like to thank them very much.
Have they gone all the way down to your place, Robert?
They've gone all the way down to the bit of the right at the end of Sid and Trish's house. They filled a big pothole in there, but they haven't done the bit in front of my house because that belongs to the waterways. But that is some good news from Honey Street, and I'm only too delighted to give you some good news from us. As a matter of, I have now just purchased the domain name altonsandhoneystreet.org.uk for 3 years. The domain name came in for, and I thought I might as well buy it for 3 years. It's only cost us £22 or something like that. So I've bought it all, and it's the one thing you suddenly forget, and then your domain name completely gets lost and you have to start again. So I hope I took that decision myself. I think that's the only thing I've got from the chairman. So I think we can go on to the planning applications. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask me? No, I can move on. Then number 2, Priory Cottages. This is for a garage. I sent you Kate Fielding. I sent you all Kate Fielding's view of it. And actually, basically speaking, she thought it was okay, but it wasn't quite what she'd want. It's not quite historic enough, but I personally think it's okay. What does anybody else think about it? Can I hear? Who was speaking? Sorry. Michael, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll say something. I went around with Robert a few nights ago to have a look at this, and all the houses along that road have got a big area in front of them, which some have garages in them already. This is bigger than the other garages around there, but I personally didn't have an issue with them doing it either.
And it also removes one of those truck things that go, what do you call it? A storage. What's it called?
Storage container.
A container. Thank you very much. And that will disappear. Personally, I was thinking whatever happens, it will be an improvement. Would we like to support? What would we like to do? Has anybody got anything further to say?
Well, I was just going to ask you, because Kate was saying she thought it was very large, but it's difficult because if there's a space for it, it doesn't seem, it's not,
There's plenty of space for it, in my opinion. Michael and I went round and asked the neighbourhood. We could only find, besides Polly's family, could only find one other person in, and they knew about it, and the next door neighbours were perfectly happy with it. Okay, well, I'm happy then. My only concern was, should there have been a green notice pinned up as a planning notice?
Yeah, and that is yes. Yeah.
There was
and I'm addressing that. You're not the only village that has actually highlighted that in the last week. So I don't know if there is an issue during August where people are on leave and they're just not getting them out, but I've had 2 others beyond this one. So I am addressing that with planning.
Okay.
Is Paul aware of anything there, I wonder?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Michael.
I was just addressing Paul there. Paul, are you aware of any issues from the council with the green notices being sent out?
I suspect what that is actually our planning officers are all working from home, and there is a restriction on their activity. So that may well be the reason why green notices aren't going up. I mean, parish councils are certainly being notified of the planning applications. Excuse me. And likewise, neighbours will be written to of those applications as well. I'm just hoping Polly's going to say she's received something from Wiltshire Council. So I think, Michael, that's potentially the reason.
No, I've received nothing.
Okay, fine.
That is a difficulty for us, isn't it?
Well, I was only aware of it because I'm a parish councillor.
That would be the second village that has also been highlighted, that neighbors are not receiving anything in paper format either through the post to make comment.
Okay, so Chair, I'll take that as an action to take that back to Wiltshire Council to make sure that actually parishioners who live in the immediate vicinity are notified of planning applications. I'll take that as an action.
I mean, presumably, no decision can be made until people are notified.
Sorry,
I mean, unless people know what's happening in their area and can comment on it, it's not exactly democratic.
They can look on the public meeting board and see what's on.
But unless they know that there is the potential for a planning application, why would you wouldn't go on a website and have a look, would you? I mean, people in this area have no idea that this is going to be built.
Michael,
we called into the neighbours either side, Polly, and the only neighbour that was at home had received the letter from the council.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I wonder why.
Maybe it's only adjacent. You're technically 3 doors down from them.
Yeah, I am indeed. Yeah.
So maybe they only do like literally next door.
We're 3 doors down from the other planning application. We received a letter on that, so I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule on that.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
What can we decide what we're going to say about this garage proposal? I believe we can comment now, even though it may not have been publicised correctly. Would you think that's correct, Elizabeth?
Yes, you can indeed.
I would suggest we support it. Does anybody agree with me?
Yeah.
Anybody think that is the wrong decision? Can I ask you, Hayley?
No, I agree. I support it.
Michael, you support it?
I support it. We did get ourselves in a bit of water before about when there was some people had passed comments and we wanted to request that they take note of the comments. And Kate Fielden has expressed some concerns. So I don't know if it's worth saying anything to that effect.
Well, the fact is that she felt the fence was a bit over the top in the way that it looked bit formal. Did you? I can't remember what her absolute words were. You may have.
It looked like a small holding. I'm not sure what that meant.
It was
Yeah,
all in timber, and I felt it would wear down and be okay eventually.
I support it anyway. Short answer to your question.
Yeah. So I support it. Alex supports it. You support it, Michael. Hayley supports it. So that is everybody with Polly standing out. Is that correct? Have I got that right, everybody? So
Yeah.
may I now move on to the next one, which is Ridgeway Cottage and what is the house next to it called? I can't think. Ridgeway Cottage and Hillsborough, sorry. Being joined Hillsborough, sorry, being joined into one. Has anybody got any comments about this?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Go on, Polly.
Two things. I don't like the garage being at the front on the road. I think that will ruin the very lovely view of the two cottages that are there. And I don't like the going down the lane, taking all the hedge out and putting post box, oil tank, blah de blah. I don't think either of those will look very nice in the area.
I think I'm right in saying she's going to do it all in old brick. I'm trying to find the drawings, but I can't from it. Elizabeth, do you have the power to bring those up on the screen?
It's going to take me a second, but I could. You are correct. They're using a certain type of brick that is in keeping with the brick that's already there.
Sorry, Alex?
Go ahead.
Kate Fielding has some comments on this one as well.
Yeah.
I think she was suggesting that she thought the garage would be better if it was rotated through 90 degrees and that she thought she was against the wall.
What do you think that is would be a good thing or not?
Well, I think as Polly commented on the garage as well, I just wonder whether that's something that we should suggest.
Well, hang on, I don't understand that. Rotated 90 degrees. At the moment, it's going to come straight from the side of the cottage, isn't it?
It's running it's like a continual wall, is that correct?
From the side of the cottage along the road.
Yeah.
And somehow they're going to drive in from the road, and there's a double garage there. Am I correct? I mean, I'm not very good at reading plans.
No, Polly, let me try and explain it, and if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. The side of the garage runs along, if you go along the house, if you're facing the house from the road, the side of the garage continues on the right hand side. And then you have where there is a hedge and a tree next to the next house, there is a hedge which they'll take out and they'll use that to drive in and turn into their garage.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to come off the road. They're going to come into the garage, which is completely on the road.
Yeah.
At the side of the house.
I think the problem, and
well, I think that'll look awful.
I think the technical problem for them is that you can't have a garage straight onto the road and back in or back out. This means they could drive into the drive area and then maneuver into the garage.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's done. Myself, looking at the plan.
She was explaining to us, wasn't she, Robert, that the highways planning or someone had been out to have a look at it already, And the rule is that you can't park up on the road, Polly, while you undo your garage door or your gate or whatever. You've got to be able to pull in somewhere and then organize your garage and all that kind of stuff. So that's why there's an area that you can drive straight into from the road. And the reason she was connecting it to the house was because there's a wind tunnel at the moment down the side of the house there. And this would just block that.
Ah,
Oh,
thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
oh gosh, I've just lost it. Oh yeah, they're there. Can you hear me?
Yes, totally,
Yeah,
totally.
I just don't like the idea of there being a garage on the road. I don't care whether you're going in it forward or sideways. I don't like the idea of a garage on the side of the house on the road. I think that will, I don't think that will look very nice. As I don't think going down the lane to the side of Ridgeway,
Yeah.
where they're going to take the hedge out. I don't like the idea of that great big brick wall and all the stuff that they're going to put down there either.
Elizabeth, can you show us existing and proposed north aspect? No, not that. Oh, all right. Existing and proposed north aspect.
Well, I've seen all these. I've looked at them.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to show everybody so that everybody knew what we were talking about. That's what Polly's talking about. Above
That's
is the existing.
going down the lane.
That's going down the lane, and that is the proposal.
So they're going to take all the hedge out, and they're going to have a massive brick wall, and then an entrance, and then various openings for bins and things like that.
Right. And also, of course, she explained that they get flooded there terrifically. The water comes round from the front of the house and then goes down the lane. And one of the reasons of building the brick wall was also to stop the flooding. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes, currently she's got a concrete mound, a ramp kind of going around that corner, which diverts most of the water. But when it's very heavy, she said she still gets some coming in.
I think what we need to think about with this as well is that if you look at the two windows that you can see in the existing north elevation and then in the new proposed elevation, she is doing it properly with really nice curved window arches above with bricks. I don't know what you call it. Alex will know the answer. I felt myself that it was going to be a quality production, but others may disagree with me. What do you all think? Can we go back to the just seeing everybody, Elizabeth? What would we like to do with this one? I personally think I'm quite happy with it, but that's my opinion. Polly doesn't like it, I don't believe. What would you like to do? Would somebody like to make a proposal that we can vote on it one way or the other? I would like, Alex, what would you like to say about it? Anything?
I'm just mulling it over, really. It's a sort of a difficult one, really, because I think that I see what Polly's saying, but equally well, I can also understand if she's getting flooded that, you are going to want something there. And all those doors, it's a shame they couldn't have been coordinated in a way so it wasn't quite so many bits of doors. Having said that, I think, I suppose the question is it okay in principle rather than just in the detail? But
it's terribly difficult on a planning a meeting between us all, where we can't just say little small details are really difficult to discuss.
They are, because it's more about the principle overall.
I think my personal feeling is the overall effect will be okay, but Polly obviously. Hayley, can we hear from you on this one?
Yeah, the brick wall, I think maybe slightly invasive, but like you said, they're going to match it, so they're doing it to a high standard, like high spec.
I believe so.
I think I'm more concerned about the garage, to be honest, than I am about what goes on down the lane. Because going down the lane isn't as visible, but that garage on the side of the house, I'm not happy with that at all, I have to say.
Well, does anybody else want to say anything else about it? Shall we, do we want to support it or not support it? I'm not getting much from anybody at the moment.
No.
Sorry. Sorry?
I was just wondering what Michael's thought about it. So sort of.
Well, do you know what? I didn't think I was going to have to declare an interest in it, but Polly is living 3 doors away and from her place, and I'm living 3 doors away from this place. So does that mean I have an interest? I don't know. I don't really know Sarah that well, but
I don't know. I think it's. I think mainly you don't have a commercial interest. You're not going to benefit from it financially, are you? So.
No, and also, Michael, my expression of interest was because it's right next to my house. Although their house is 3 houses away, 2 houses away, what they're proposing is right next to my house. So that's slightly more invasive than, I don't think you should declare an interest.
I have no objection to the plan.
No. Can I ask our clerk, that is perfectly correct, is it, that Michael doesn't have to declare an interest? I think we've all agreed that.
Yes.
Right.
And I would say as well, she has covered, like, I take Polly's point about the garage, and yes, there would be an impact of that. The side wall, I don't see being an impact, especially as she's covered that whole area in climbers as it is, and I would imagine that the wall will be covered in climbers before too long. But the garage, I take Polly's point that it is going to be an impact. Whether we can get her to do something to soften that or not, which might help if there were climbers up the side, if it was moved back a little bit and climbers going between that and the road, whether that would also help. Don't know. Can we say that kind of thing?
Yeah, but I personally, well, I don't think we can tell people what to do with their gardens and their plants.
Well, you actually can make suggestions. You'd be surprised. There are lots of planting permissions that are granted based on what is actually planted in the garden and when. So if it is a comment you wish to make, not that it will be actually adhered to, you need to be stating what you actually would prefer. So
I have no objections, but I would encourage softening of the impact with planting, including the garage.
I would agree with that. I think that's fine. Shall we have, I think we may need to have a vote on this one then. I'm in favour. Who else is in favour of it?
Well, we have.
Are you in favour, Alex?
Yes, I think so. I think I just wonder whether the comment should be that we soften it with planting and suggest it's moved back a little bit, but you know, we're sort of in favour overall.
What, you mean the wall is moved back or the garage?
Garage.
So the garage is stepped back a bit to leave room for planting in front of it.
Okay, so you're suggesting, sorry, just make this absolutely clear, that they move the actual garage back a tiny bit. So let's say there could be something grown up the front of the garage that's facing the road. Is that correct?
That'd be my preference, but yeah.
Okay, Elizabeth.
yes.
Can we make that as a suggestion? But we are in support, as far as I can see, from me, from Alex is in support, from Michael, from Hayley. And do you want to abstain or object, Polly?
I'll abstain.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for that. It's always difficult deciding these things. And I personally think that having a good discussion about it is a good idea, like we've just had. Michael and I, as I say, have visited it, and I think you will find that they will make it a very pleasant house externally as well as internally. That's my feeling. I mean, I don't mean internally in the like, I meant the garden as well. To note, the following discussions from Wiltshire Council, we have had none received. To receive information from our clerk.
I'd like to say I have a lot to give you, but at the moment, I think it's we just haven't had a lot come through yet for August. So I'll refrain and report more in September as it comes through.
Fine. To approve a flood warden for the parish to work with parish clerk. Now, Stephen is the present flood warden. Has somebody got something on extra? Because I'm getting echoes.
I am too.
Sorry, I'll go on. The flood warden is, Stephen's done an awful lot of work on this. And I think he did it with Peter Emery, but Peter Emery told me that Stephen had all the paperwork. Now, he sent me all the paperwork and I've sent it all on to Elizabeth. Did I send it to you? I can't remember. What do we do? Do we need a flood warden? Presumably we do. Can it be somebody not in the council?
What does a flood warden do?
Well, I think
I'm nominally a secondary, a kind of support flood warden, because I get copied in on emails from Wiltshire Council all the time on these flood matters. And I can't remember the chap's name now, but I probably get one probably kind of once every 3 weeks, once a month from this chap, where he's discussing we kind of get reports on, or just general comments on the flood stuff. I think in essence, you're there to sort of report on the condition of the roads and where the floods are, which is partly why I keep an eye out for it. I think we do need a flood warden, because I know that further down at the other end of Honey Street, there's always that sort of massive puddle, isn't there, over by, just as you're going.
Baker's Corner.
Baker's Corner, that's atrocious sometimes. I mean, even sort of just the other weekend, there been a heavy downpour and, you end up having to drive on the higher end side of the road, which creates problems. There are sort of minor problems at the entrance. Well, not really problems. There's a minor issue at the entrance to Honey Street, but I think further up the village, there are bigger issues. As we said, outside this cottage we were just talking about. So I think there doesn't need to be somebody, but it's a sort of, I suppose the question is, I don't have the time. If it involves kind of pulling out sandbags and all that sort of thing, I wouldn't be around to do that. But
can I just ask Paul Oatway, Paul, do other villages have a flood warden?
Yes, they have a flood warden and they have a flood policy. But obviously the flood policies invariably come into play where they've got a river running through their parish. But I agree with Alex. I mean, I think it would be beneficial for you to have a flood warden. It gives you a better understanding of what's going on around the county or nearby. And as we know, even with the road improvements that have taken place on that bend at last, I say at last, that is a flood area. So I think it would be beneficial.
And does it have to be a member of the parish council?
It doesn't have to be, no, as long as they can report into you and act on your behalf. Right.
I'm going to ask the parish council to think between now and the next meeting who might be appropriate. Sorry, not appreciated. I will talk to Peter Emery, but I suspect he's quite happy to do the physical bit if we ask him very nicely. But I doubt if he's prepared to do all the maps and everything like that. Is there anybody that comes to mind? Hayley, have you got any suggestions?
No, I'm afraid not.
Holly, have you got any suggestions?
No, I mean, Peter came to my mind. No, I'll put my thinking cap on that one.
Well, I will place this on the website as a position we would like somebody in the village, and I will also put it on the WhatsApp, the village WhatsApp site, just saying we are trying to find somebody to become flood warden. We're also trying to find somebody to fill in the extras missing space in our committee.
Be on the parish council, yeah.
So we'll leave that, Elizabeth, we'll leave that until next time, but we will make, all of us please, will make some attempt of trying to twist somebody's arm and see if they would like to do it. It could be quite interesting for the right person.
Do you know who might be good at it would be, do you remember Richard Haycock joined the parish council before? He might be interested. Right.
Well, I could ask him or you could, whichever. Would you like to ask him, Michael?
Yeah.
If you would, that would be kind.
Well, I should still go ahead and do what you were going to do anyway, Robert.
Yes, okay, fine. May I move on, everybody?
Yeah.
To nominate two councillors to put up the notices. It seems to me that I'm always putting up the notices on the notice boards, and I do think it would be really good if somebody could do Alton Priors and Alton Barnes. I'm happy
I'll do Alton Priors.
Can you? You have a printer, don't you? That's the most
Well, I
important.
can print it at work. Yeah, I'll do Alton
Thank
Priors.
you. And will you do Alton Barnes, and I'll do Honey Street.
Okay.
Can we bring up the next thing is the notice boards themselves. The one in Alton Barnes is falling off the wall. And I personally think it needs to be a slightly bigger notice board. Whose wall is it? And do we have permission to replace it?
It's David Carson's wall, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Would you
Well,
like...
we're not left on you were finding prices, Robert.
Sorry, I was going to find prices, but I did that once and we weren't ready for it. No
Yeah,
point
so what happened?
Oh, thank you.
Where are we now?
I haven't looked the prices up, but what I will do, I want to make sure we can renew the. There's no point in me finding out the prices if we're not allowed to renew or replace the signs. And I think both of those might come to David Carson because one's on the barn and one's on his wall. So, Michael, again, would you be kind enough and ask him?
Yeah.
And I personally like the signs, the notices that have in little gold letters, Alton Priors, Alton Barnes, and little wooden ones. I think they look really attractive, but we might want to go to something more luxurious. But shall we find out we've got permission first to replace them?
Okay, I'll do that.
And that
Well, anything that you receive, if you could actually forward to me, I'd be grateful, please.
Okay. Can we move on now?
Sorry, Beth, did you mean responses from David or did you mean quotes about the notice board?
No,
Both.
sorry.
Both. Yeah.
The response from David, we'll wait to hear from you about that, Michael. And until we know we can do it and whether they can be a bit bigger, Michael, I think that's the most important thing. If somebody says, no, you can't put it any bigger, then there's no point in me getting a quote for a slightly bigger one. So I'm prepared to find the quotes out and the type of notice boards, but I think if you would first of all find out if it's okay with David. David will be he's usually very good on these sorts of things.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody happy? Can I move on?
In the meantime, I'm going to do Alton Priors. Yeah.
You're going to do Alton Priors, but you're going to do you're going to stick the minutes up and the agendas up on the notice boards.
Fine.
But I think if Michael asks David about the permission to change the notice boards and because I think he's the farm as well, isn't he? Really? Or he'll ask his brother. I don't think there'll be a problem there. Have I got that right, everybody?
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I move on?
Yeah.
To receive information on the barge and the campsite, I've had a meeting with Hugh Potter and John Dunford, both living in Barge Lane, and they've both been and Tony Brown and everybody. I didn't meet Tony, but everybody living in Barge Lane has been alarmed at the amount of campers there are going there. The Saturday before last at about 3:30 were 166 cars on the unofficial car park and 45 cars on the official car park, resulting in about 400 to 500 people being there. The police came and looked at it and they have written to Hugh Potter saying it's perfectly all right to have 500 people there using the lane. I just don't know where to turn on this one, though it was advised to me that I should ask our county councillor whether some big signposts could be put up, some small speeding signs could be put up. But when we talked about it just casually, Paul informed me that the slowest you're allowed to put up is 10 miles an hour. Is that correct, Paul?
20.
20 is the slowest, and really you don't want anybody going faster than 10 miles an hour down that road. Can we get special dispensation and ask for that?
No.
So there's no point in having any extra signs.
So I'm trying not to be negative here. So this is one of the conversations that we had with officers on the ground on that Monday. Excuse me. And if you remember, when we posed the question of 10 miles an hour, they both looked the other way and said we didn't hear that. So as far as regulations are concerned, the lowest speed limit that is permissible is a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. So Wiltshire Council does not have the power or authority to put a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit in place. One, they don't have that power, and second, it's not enforceable. You will recall that you and I mentioned about parishioners putting that in their garden, and that's when they looked the other way and said we hadn't heard that. Once again, it's not for me to advise or support. But I mean, my view is if a parishioner wishes to put something in their garden, there's nothing legally that can prohibit that as long as it's not offensive. Likewise, people have flagpoles, people have honey for sale. So, if they want to put a sign in their garden, for whatever that sign is, I can see no legislation that can prohibit that.
Great, thank you. But I just wanted the Parish Council to be aware that there's an enormous amount of traffic going up and down Barge Lane, and the residents there are definitely having problems with it. And I'm not quite sure what we can do about it, but I think we should all be aware of that. Is that okay?
Was there an event on there, Robert?
Sorry, hold on. Not both at once.
Hugh Potter.
Who is Hugh Potter?
Yeah.
He lives in the house 3 or 4 up from John. Hugh and his wife Jane.
Right.
It's the 3 cottages joined into one. What were you going to say, Michael? It was you, wasn't it?
I was just going to say, was there some event on in the barge?
No, this seems to be the amount of people that are going camping. It doesn't seem to be
permission for that many people to camp. I didn't think they did.
I didn't think they did either. And I thought COVID was not dealing with this very efficiently. I mean, they were not, but apparently, according to the letter I think I've sent on to Elizabeth for reference, the police say that they are dealing with COVID because people are doing this by email, and therefore they know who everybody is.
So my understanding was that they've got a permission to have, like, is it 90 or something camps in that field of theirs? And then they overflow into the surrounding fields. And I thought that you'd at least need some sort of temporary permission for that kind of number.
Well, it doesn't appear so. I think we should probably, I mean, I'm trying to support everybody who lives in Barge Lane. I
may be wrong here, but I think the overflow field Trowbridges have given them, they are allowed to use that for another use, but it's got a limit on how the time on it.
It's 28. It's 28 days, Hayley, and what they're doing is they're doing 28 days divided by weekends. So they're doing 2 days, 2 days, and 2 days, which I think.
And is it sticking to that though?
I haven't a clue.
Does anyone go down the barge?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I go down every now and then.
I have some sympathy for them because obviously we want the pub to do well, but you know, that situation where you've got just cars constantly roaring past your door.
Unfortunately, I don't, because I have heard stories coming from that place. It is rife with drugs and just riffraff. It just sounds horrific.
My sympathy is with the residents, not the campers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would be furious if I lived down there.
Yeah.
And I don't think putting 10-mile-per-hour signs out would make any difference. It would annoy you more because you put the signs out and no one will stick to it.
Great. Well, Hayley, that's really good to hear that, because I think a lot of people feel as cross as you, but we don't know where to move.
I know. I would be, if I was in Johnny Dunford's house, I'd be furious. I heard he's had his hedge run over,
Hmm.
like someone's just driven into it. There must
Oh.
be, and 500 people.
Yeah.
I thought, like, with COVID and everything, they can't.
Yeah, the distancing is very hard to do, isn't it, when there's that many people?
You
And
can't. There can't be any distancing going on.
I have to agree with John Dunford as well. It must be awful because of the COVID thing, they've opened that beer bar kind of onto the back of his garden, haven't they?
Yeah.
Probably making it really noisy for him. So yeah, you know, I mean, but I suppose the question is, what can we do to support them? That's the difficulty, isn't it?
The problem is something comes up with the pub every single summer, and it's always a problem. And I doubt if we can do anything at this moment, but I would like to take it further if the people in Barge Lane would like us to.
Yeah.
I heard there was a riot ban down there. Two riot bans went down there.
But you just need to read the letter the police sent. If you want me to, I'll find it and read it out to you, because
well, it just seems unbelievable that they won't do anything about it. Like, I assume they went and had a chat with the landlord.
Yes. Paul, may I ask, Paul, do you hear our quandary about this? What would you, any
Well,
advice?
I mean, I don't know about police activity, but all I know is that Wiltshire Police attended twice over that weekend. Now, why they were tasked there, what the outcome was, I do not know. In relation to the 28-day, I mean, that can only be monitored locally. I mean, Steve Jenkins, the enforcement officer, went there. I've asked several prudent questions, to which the response was that actually no enforcement action could be taken on the activities that took place that weekend. So clearly we're in the 28-day situation. And I suppose that can only be monitored locally. And I don't know how you're going to do that, to be honest with you. In relation to ongoing public disorder, I mean, if that is occurring on a regular occurrence, I'm more than happy to take that up on your behalf with Wiltshire Police, because as Hayley said, you know, that is unacceptable. You know,
it's well known the amount of drugs that go on down there.
Yeah.
It's a common fact, and I would hate to live down there. I feel so sorry for them.
Yeah.
And the music, we can hear the music from here in Alton Priors.
I mean, it's every weekend and it goes on quite late.
Yeah, we hear it from here. It's like,
you can certainly hear it in the terrace.
Paul, can I ask you, it seems to me this committee would very much like to support the people living in Barge Lane. Could I ask you to perhaps take this up a bit further with the police and the licensing authority?
Yeah, I can do, yeah.
But
I'm happy to ask those questions and come back. Yeah,
because I think we need a formula that works not just for the rest of this year, but forever, because it's not working and we have these problems every year.
Yeah.
Robert, the last time we had issues down there, we approached, is it Alistair or Adrian?
Alistair, yes.
We approached him directly. We got a very good response.
I have to say, you know, I live opposite the pub, and I personally this year have had less problems than I've ever had. But I think it's because most of it's going on the other side of the pub in the campsite,
which is further away from everybody.
I think Alistair is very open to us approaching him.
Well,
I'm a big believer in doing that first, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, shall we ask Paul to hold on then? And shall we ask Elizabeth to write to Alistair, the publican, and say that this committee would like to discuss with him the campsite and the problems,
and present the views of the local people there.
Present the views of the local people. One of the ways of solving it is many years ago, well, partly solving it is when they did this before, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, they entered into the campsite via John Trowbridge's field from a different way. Is that correct, everybody?
No.
Oh, it's not. Okay. I thought they had a different entrance through the.
They only did that on one occasion, and that was, I think, for a festival.
Okay.
It wasn't a regular thing.
Right.
When
Well-
was that, Polly?
I think it was for when we had the barge and we had a massive one-day festival. And I think possibly
Yeah.
with people arriving then,
Um,
from then. But
But-
it's a very dangerous way to enter. I don't think that's a normal thing. Yeah.
No, okay. I'm just putting out suggestions that we could probably try and sell partners. So are we unanimous that we would like Elizabeth to write to Alistair Sinclair and ask him to perhaps attend one of our meetings, and we can perhaps discuss it with him?
I think as soon as possible, though, for the residents. It's coming up bank holiday, so you're going to have a great bank holiday weekend living down there, aren't you? It's going to be packed if the weather's nice. So I think it needs to be done sooner rather than later.
Our next meeting, of course, is due for September. Shall we try and invite him for that? I don't think we'll get him before then.
Is it worthwhile popping down there beforehand, Robert, and just having an informal chat with them first?
Well, it might be good if 3 or 4 of us did. What do you think? Would that be a good idea?
I'm happy to go down there and maybe even grab a pint while I'm there, depending.
Yeah, I'm happy to go down. Are you happy to go down? Who else would like to come down? Do you want to come, Polly, or do you want Hayley?
Absolutely not. I don't go anywhere. I've got COPD, Robert.
Okay.
I don't mix with anybody at the moment.
No, and not if they've got that amount of people down there. No, I don't think it's. I can't see how they're allowed that many people.
Nor can I. What I might do is make sure you.
And
all
I'd rather not give them money. So no, sorry.
Fair enough. Shall we say that Elizabeth will write to him and ask him if myself, Michael, and Alex can go down and just talk to him about the problem in Barge Lane for a start?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Polly, can I ask you a question? Why is it dangerous to approach from John Trowbridge's land onto the campsite if there's a big event going on?
It's a working farmyard.
Yeah, and also
It's a
just
dairy
the
farm.
highway. The
Sorry, Polly, I
highways.
didn't hear that.
Well, you need to have permission from highways to actually go in and out
Oh, I
of
see.
there. And I can't remember properly. I don't think we ever did that. No,
Rumor is people have been doing it this year, though.
I think it's a good idea to do it if possible.
coming off the road.
Well, I haven't looked at the access way there yet, but if it avoids the road that is the issue at the moment, which is the Barge Lane. And if, you know, there's
Well,
100
when
people coming down
when
Park
the
on
community
weekend.
project had the pub, we were actually in negotiations with John Trowbridge to do exactly that.
Yeah, sounds good idea.
To take the traffic away from Barge Lane. But it was a long process, and unfortunately we weren't there that long.
Because one thing that I think we could suggest as well is actually moving some of the activity around to the other side of the pub. So currently, as Alex just pointed out, the bar is against John Dunford's fence, and it could be anywhere in that plot, really.
I think there's quite a lot of activity going on the far side. There's an enormous marquee.
So why not have the drinks over there as well? Exactly.
I'm not sure if he doesn't. I don't know. I can't answer.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think ultimately, yeah, if John Dunford's up for it, it's what we were trying to negotiate with him was an entrance from to avoid Barge Lane completely and to go in from another entrance.
Well,
but you'd have to go through, you know, highways planning.
Yes, but we wouldn't get that done this year, but at least we would be moving in the right direction for the residents, in my opinion, if we manage to get something. So, Elizabeth,
Yes.
Alex, myself, and Michael will. I'm quite prepared to ask John Dunford and Hugh Potter if they'd like to join us. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah.
And we'll all try and make an appointment to go and see him sometime before the next council meeting.
I think it might not be a good idea to invite people who aren't on the parish council.
I absolutely agree with that. I don't think.
It's a bit animated, really, because I know that Hugh and John are both really upset about it, aren't they? So
Yeah, but I don't think we should. They're not. We can't have them involved in a parish council.
No. Well done, Polly. I agree. I think I've made a mistake there, so I think you're all right. So it'll be just the three of us, Elizabeth. Is that all right? Are you happy for me to carry on?
Yeah.
Elizabeth, this is you, definitely.
Well, I've not received any questions. It's obviously to review and approve the adoption of a complaints policy for the council. This was born out of the fact that we have had a complaint against a councillor on the council, and it needs to be handled appropriately. And actually, the council really does need to have, out of best practice, a formal complaints policy that it follows and that the public are aware of, and how to go through it in a proper manner.
Okay, can we know? I have no idea about this. Can we know who the complaint's against and what it's about?
At this stage, Polly, I would say to you, for transparency, I would want to say, but at the moment, the complaint itself has not been formally done. I've had a one email, and actually in process, what would happen from me is I would then send them the complaints policy, and then that person would make a decision if they wanted to go with a more formal complaint. And so I would say to you at this point, I would not be happy to share that. At the end of the day, this is really more of a discussion point about best practice and what the council needs to be doing as far as staying in line with its own policies and how it is perceived by the public outward, and also looking to ensure that actually you guys are looked after as a council also, because a good policy in place protects both sides.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we should do that soon
Okay,
after.
okay. Can I say that probably as the longest serving member on this council, we have never had a complaint, ever, in my knowledge, from a member of the public. We've had some pretty appalling behaviour by parish councillors, but we've never actually had a complaint from the public. So I'm pretty taken aback by this. And yeah, I really want to deal with this. And I'm also a bit upset that I'm not going to be told what the complaint is and who it's about.
That may not be the case. It's just for this particular meeting and format that it would be not an appropriate way of dealing with the situation. For this particular motion, it's simply about doing housekeeping for you all and putting in a complaints policy. And the reason we spoke quite a long time ago about the fact that when I came on board with this council, you didn't have a lot of policies that actually help structure the way you work and how you do your business as a council. And it was necessary to try and achieve a different level for you all. So for me, at this point in this meeting, it's simply about trying to structure that and build another level of that. Beyond that, obviously, this is council business, and if it does become a formal complaint in the appropriate manner, then the council becomes involved and then is appropriately notified. But this particular time is not an appropriate time to have that discussion.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Do we want to adopt the policy that she sent us, or have you not read it?
Yeah.
I've not seen it.
Well, you've been sent it.
When was I sent it?
By me yesterday.
No, I didn't get it.
It is literally that we should just look to adopt a policy, a complaints policy, Polly.
Well, absolutely. Of course we should, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we've had a complaint, yeah. We've never had a complaint. So that's why we haven't got a complaints policy.
So would somebody like to propose we adopt a proposal? Thank you, Alex. Would somebody second it? Michael?
Yeah.
Those in favour? Me?
Yeah.
Hang on. Can somebody pray see for me what the complaints policy is? How are we going to go about it?
Elizabeth, I'm afraid I'm going to hand that one to you.
All right. So we get a complaint. What happens then?
Essentially, you get a complaint, and then I send the complaints policy out to the person that has made the complaint. And they decide if they're going to actually put that forward formally. If they do, then they write to me, And then depending on what the complaint is, because there are some things that are not appropriate for you all to hear as a council. So like an employee complaint, that would not be something, employee conduct, that would not be something that you would look at. Financial irregularity, that wouldn't. Criminal activity or member conduct, because you are a member of a code of conduct, that normally goes to your unitary council. But once I get the complaint, then we decide as a council, it goes to council. First, I actually look at what it is. As I said, there's a time limit, 7 clear working days. I have to send out a letter, and then we consider whether the circumstances of the meeting warrant, any kind of action, and where we go from that. There's several different points, Polly, and I could go through them all. There's about 12 different points.
Okay.
It
right.
just depends on the
really,
severity
okay,
of it.
can I just cut in here? I don't care about official policy. What I care about is that we are a tiny little parish council and somebody's making a complaint against us. Yeah. I don't want to go into a load of red tape about that. What I want to do is deal with it, because, we're not Bristol City Council. We are individuals who live in this area. And if somebody's got a complaint against one of us, I think we should deal with it. I don't think we should go through all these procedures. I think we should actually deal with it, because we have to be transparent. Yeah, everybody knows who we are. We're not an anonymous body. Everybody knows who we are. And if somebody's got a complaint about one of us, I think we should deal with it, and very quickly.
Yeah, so where does that complaint stand now, Elizabeth? So they've made the complaint.
And I've gone... Sorry, go ahead.
So where does that stand now? They've made the complaint.
Yes. And so what I've done is I've written back and said that at the moment, there is not a formal complaints policy in place, that we're going to be reviewing that tonight for the purposes of transparency. It's on the agenda. You can't really not say that. And that once, if actually this is adopted, then I would...
So they get 7 days from then. So if it's adopted...
I send them the complaints policy, and it might just go away. They might read the complaints policy and say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything.
I don't want it to go away. Well, I don't want it to go away.
I do understand that, Polly.
If somebody in our villages is upset with us, I want to deal with it.
You got to be careful.
I don't want to send a load of bloody legalese and say you've got to stick with a policy.
I think that what Elizabeth is trying to do is to protect us all, should anything go wrong. And with this very litigation society we've now entering, and things are getting very much more complicated. You and I, Polly, and several of us remember when I've been a parish councillor now for about 8 or 10 years. And it's all been quite friendly and very nice, but it's with big planning applications and things like that, it sometimes does get difficult. And if somebody wants to complain, it's better, I believe, that we have an official complaints policy, even though it sounds like more red tape. Yeah. My heart is with everything Polly has said. My wisdom tells me differently.
The thing is, Polly, it's there in part to protect both parties. So if somebody makes a false allegation, that there can be a proper record and a proper way of doing it, rather than it just becoming a personal ding dong. I think that's the idea behind the policy.
100%, yes, 100%. You're actually meeting the two ends together. You're doing exactly, Polly, what you would like to see happen, but it's structuring it in a way that actually there may be a person, for instance, you don't know, and they don't know you, and that's going to become more relevant because people are moving around this country a lot, and there's a lot of more housing going in. It's going to change, and so really it's a way to actually be able to communicate through a difficult period or a time when you don't necessarily agree on a certain aspect of life, but actually you have a policy in place, you follow it, and the outcomes are fair and they're balanced and they protect two sides. And that's precisely what you should be doing as a council.
Personally, I think I would like to suggest that we accept this policy. I would propose that we accept it. I've read it. I don't know if anybody else has read it. Have you read it?
Briefly, but I second that.
Yeah, I've heard it.
What do you think,
Well,
Hayley?
I don't think we have a choice, really, do we?
Well, we could. My heart.
If it doesn't,
Polly, everything Polly says, I
No,
agree with. But
yeah.
I feel we need to protect ourselves in the correct and most efficient way.
I
So,
think the right way to go about it, I think.
so Hayley, are you in favour or not?
Well, yeah,
Thank you.
I think I have to be.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm twisting your arm. Polly, what are you going to do?
Well, yet again,
You're going
I'm
to...
going to abstain.
Fair enough. Polly, I so agree with you, but that was carried. Is that all right, Elizabeth?
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Yes, certainly, Paul.
I don't intend to interfere with your business about your policies or procedures or whatever, but there's just one question I would like to get clarified from the conversation I had, and I am conscious of why Elizabeth is not disclosing the complaint, because we do have members of the public listening in on this as well. But am I right in saying that your council, all listening tonight, are now not aware of who this complaint is directed at?
At this point, no, because it's not been formalized. So that's correct.
So this complaint could be pointed at any one of those councillors then?
Yes.
Okay.
It could be me.
so-
It could be me, and I'm not allowed to know.
But I could clarify that at a different time, but I did email out, just as clarification for you, Paul, that I did email out where this came from. And I have had one counselor come back to me saying, is this against me? And you know, perhaps that is something that I need to be more conscious of going forward. And I did clarify that it wasn't.
Yeah.
But I'm also very conscious that I have to be fair and balanced to the other side, because it's not a formal complaint yet, if you see what I mean. It is, but it's not, because we haven't got a policy in place to follow.
So-
Okay, but how do you think I feel as a parish councillor?
So,
This
Mr. Chairman,
complaint could be about me, and I'm not allowed to know.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, talking to you and Elizabeth, I'm thinking now for this complaint needs to be, I am the chairman of Wiltshire Council Standards Committee. So this complaint needs to be looked at, which Elizabeth is clearly progressing that. But for the benefit and welfare of your council, Mr. Chairman, and Elizabeth, and you can challenge me on this if you don't agree, please do. What you could do this evening, you could go into a part 2, which is a closed meeting, which would enable the clerk to advise who the complaint is being made against. And that would remove the stress and concerns from all those members of this council that are not affected. Elizabeth, I don't know what you think of that.
I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy with that. This is meant to be more of a help. It's not meant to cause any kind of any issue with any of the councillors. So absolutely, I'm very happy with that.
So
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the members of the public who are listening to this, this is not about sweeping things under the carpet. Parish councils can go into a part 2, which is closed. And the only reason why I've just brought this to this council's attention for the benefit of the public listening is actually there is the welfare of all concerned in this, the complainant and council, and something inside me says it's perhaps unfair that councillors leave tonight not knowing if they're subject to a complaint or not, and this would enable that process to be duly managed going forward. So that's what I just bring to the table.
Paul, I think that's an excellent idea, and I'm very happy with that.
But it does need to be signed off by your clerk, because I say this is not my business. This is just some guidance that I'm offering.
Would it be better to continue with the item 12 and 13 and then do the closed part of the meeting right at the end?
Yeah.
Yes.
But you need to ensure that actually it is closed and that members of the public are not listening in.
I think Elizabeth has that under control. Do you not, Elizabeth? So we're going to hold that as we've got to so far, and then we're going to move on to number 12 to consider items of maintenance. Elizabeth?
That would be for you all to tell me if there's any items of maintenance I need to follow up in Alton or Honey Street, anything I need to go and deal with. So if you have something for me, please let me know.
I think we're fine on that. Has nobody got anything for him, for her?
So we did raise the fact of the road outside our place in Alton Barnes quite some time ago, and I have never heard if we've had any feedback on that.
I've not had anything back yet. I did write and I'll follow it up.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
She did right. She asked me exactly where you were, Michael, so I can back that up. Key messages, Elizabeth.
Well, this would be again for you all to say out of this meeting, what are our key messages for the public? And normally they go into a magazine or a newsletter or on the website, but usually we have a little place where you put the key messages of this meeting tonight.
I don't think we've got any, have we? Anybody? Okay, I'm going to move us on. The next meeting is already booked for Thursday, the 17th of September. Is that okay with everybody still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're going to declare the meeting closed to the public, Elizabeth.
So, Mr. Chairman, before you do that, can I just make one further point? I think it is very important here now, because the public are listening, that as you move into part 2, this issue of the complaint, this process for part 2 is to notify council of who the councillor is subject to complaint, but no further debate.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Because otherwise the public will think that you are then after having conversations about this complaint and possibly doing things that would be inappropriate.
No,
I would not be party to. So I think it's very clear that the part 2 is only to advise council who is subject of complaint.
Fine. Thank you very much, Paul. Your advice is really useful for this.
And I'm sorry if I'm being pedantic here, but I just think it's important.
Absolutely right, Paul. Absolutely right.
We want to get it right, and we're really grateful to your guidance. We all agree, don't we?
Yeah.
So
the only thing I would say is, can we actually please put up a vote to exclude the public for the closed session? And I need a first and seconder for that for the minutes, please.
well,
I propose.
I'll second.
okay. Anybody against? All in favour? Yes, we're all in favour. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Does the word live